Joining me now to flesh all this out, President and CEO of the Job Creators Network, and he's been at the engine of this, right in the middle of it for a very long time, getting the PPP done, the Payroll Protection Program, and he's a fighter for small business all over the country, Alfredo Ortiz. Joining us here, early riser on a Friday. Alfredo, great to have you.
Hey, John, good morning. I'm already on my lunch hour. I don't know about you.
I tell you what, I tell our I don't know when you sleep because I get up at 3:45 every day. I've texted Alfredo at 4 a.m. and he's texting me back within a minute. So I don't know what he's doing there in Atlanta, Georgia, but he's all over the place.
Yeah,
I know
I get
you're working hard.
Hours. I get a couple of hours, but there's plenty of time to sleep after we win all this, and we're on the other side of this horrible time frame that we're in right now.
Alfredo, lots to talk about today. I want to get to right now, short term, the most important thing. The Democrats in Congress holding up an additional $250 billion right now that the Republicans are trying to get a clean bill in order to augment the fund for the Payroll Protection Program. They staked it with $350. It was so immensely popular, the money's already ran out, but there's still additional small businesses whose borrowing loans are in the pipeline, but now there's no more funding there, and the Democrats are holding it up in order to put in their own goodie bag of stuff. What's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right, and it's just ridiculous. As you pointed out, $350 billion, the provision, that's what was put in there, and within 1 week's time, and again, I want to emphasize this, within actually less than a week's time, John, as you know, Secretary Mnuchin was able to work with SBA and put together a brand new lending facility for small business owners. Were there hiccups? Were there bumps along the way? Sure. But we got to put this in perspective. The SBA basically processed in 14 days what they normally process in 14 years. I mean, this was the how popular this program was and the importance of it, because this literally is the lifeline for many of small businesses. You yourself have experienced what this really means to you. Millions of others out there need that. 1.5 million applications basically were approved, and again, the funds dispersed. Last Thursday, the president asked Mitch McConnell to be able to ask for another $250 billion of Congress. It would have been a simple voice vote to get this done, but the Democrats held it up, and it's now been 7 days, now more than 7 days since then, right, since last Thursday, that request had been there, and we are out of funds. If you remember, John, last time I was on, I predicted that would be out of funds by Wednesday. I was dead on that one, just because the amount of applications coming in was just amazing, right? Because we need to help and give this lifeline to these small business owners. But I have to tell you, these Dems, I mean, you would think that they hate small businesses, and I really am starting to believe that they really do. And you know why I think, John? Because they can't control them. They can't corral them. Right? Small business isn't like big business where all of a sudden they can just impose their will on all these small businesses across the country. So, quite frankly, we put out a message as soon as that happened and as soon as the vote happened that said, send a Democrat message to small business owners is drop dead, because that's exactly what they've told them to do, and that's what's happening around the country. That's why we saw the 22 million. Remember, I also mentioned to you that number a couple of weeks ago. That was kind of my estimate, 22 to 24 million unemployed, and it seemed like an incredible number back then. Here we are today. That's where we are. We're calculating we're losing about 32,000 jobs per hour, right? For every hour that Pelosi and Schumer sit on their butts and do nothing about this and just let it all fall apart, we're losing 32,000 jobs per hour. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous, John.
What you just said is the Democrats hate small business. Of course they do, Alfredo. And if you even spin this, you're not being realistic, because small business represents the engine, the cornerstone, the capstone of President Trump's base. They are the seed of the deplorables. They're the people who sign the front of paychecks. They understand what this president has done to get bureaucracy, government off their backs, to bring them tax advantages so they can expand their businesses, hire people, grow their dream. They represent the independent base of the president. And so what better way to screw them than the Democrats by holding up their funds? Because if the Democrats can eviscerate small businesses, they win everything. Because, look, they want big business, big tech, and big government and big media. That's their base. Small business for the Democrats, politically, Alfredo, are just a thorn in their side. So let's just get rid of them, starve them to death, don't give them any money, let 30% of the small business in the United States close, and they'll gain power.
And, John, that's why they like regulation, right? That's why they love regulation. The Democrats love it. You know why? Because regulation costs money. And what ends up happening is that only the biggest of big businesses, right, survive because they're the ones that can pay the lawyers and the accountants and all that. The small businesses get screwed. And so, Main Street America is literally hanging by a thread here, waiting for this additional funds now. Because, by the way, John, as of Wednesday night, like I said, the $350 billion is gone, kaput, zero. Nothing is left of those funds, which means not a single bank out there or SBA can take one single new application at this point. They are forbidden by law to do it because the appropriations aren't there anymore. So literally, we now have to wait to see when Chuck and Nancy decide that it's actually a good idea to start taking this bill up. Maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, maybe May 4th when they come back. I mean, literally, what do we see? We see Nancy Pelosi in her mansion in San Francisco, right, in front of her two Sub-Zero refrigerators, pulling out this, ice cream that costs $10 a pint. I mean, she is so out of touch with reality. In the meantime, she should walk, anywhere, Main Street America. And these businesses are closed right now temporarily. Some of them are trying to survive with takeout and delivery and stuff like that. But John, you know this because these are your customers as well. They can't survive much longer. They may have another 20, 30 days worth of cash left, and then that's it.
When this thing was put together, they didn't really know what the number would be, right? They had to make a guesstimate. That's why they picked $350 billion. It seemed like a good number at the time to get it started. The fact that if people that have never done banking as a small business, it's very difficult to navigate your way through this. And, there's different types, Alfredo, of small businesses. There's a small business that has, 50 employees. They've been around a while. They have an accounting company. They have a bookkeeper. They have a CFO. All their paperwork is there. A lot of the small companies with 3 or 4 or 5 employees, that things are a little more haphazard, right? There's boxes with files in them. Maybe
Right.
they have QuickBooks set up on their computer. They're still behind. They haven't done they didn't do their taxes because they were not due now to July 15th. So they didn't have the documents in. So they got behind the curve. Plus, maybe they don't have a relationship with a bank that was involved in it. That bank had to get the paperwork. So they got shoved a little bit behind the line, and it took them a week or so to get their act together, to get the loan papers in, and now the fund has run out of money. Is that fair?
Yeah, here's the sad part, John, is that our largest banks, even though they ended up kind of coming through at the end there, I feel like they came along kicking and screaming, right? The real heroes of this were the community banks out there. They're the ones that really seem to have come through here tremendously. It wasn't actually the largest of banks. And you would think that after the big bank bailout that we did, that they would be there, right? That they'd be first in line, pretty much basically saying, hey, you know what? We're actually not going to charge the government anything for these things. We're just going to process them because it's the right thing to be doing, right? But no, that wasn't the case. And really, community banks really came through. And like I said, there were hiccups along the way. There were clarifications. I mean, think about it again, John. In less than 7 days, the Treasury Department put together a $350 billion government lending facility, which you did the application. It really was a one-page application.
It was
right?
it was a one-page app. It was a one-page app. Ann did it in under an hour. She did it in exactly 50 minutes, which included everything. One-page app, the worksheet, and then all the accompanied documents. Because you've got to remember, this is when your bank looks at it the way it's supposed to be. It's looked at it as a legitimate loan. So you have to have your documents there. Also, you want to do that to stop fraud and abuse. And we all know there's going to be some of that out there. People
Right.
lie on their forms, and they can make up stuff. So there's going to be some of that no matter what you do, a percentage of that, and shame on those people, and some of them are
Right.
going to end up in jail. But it took her
Right.
50 minutes. We got the loan in 7 days, kept our business open in April, didn't have to lay anybody off, didn't have to cut anything back, able to keep going so that we have time to figure this out, okay? Because obviously our retail base collapsed, right? All those ads are gone.
Yeah. Right.
So now we have to figure it out. So it gives you the time to do that. But I love what you just said. The community banks really in this phase are the heroes because they're the ones that stepped up. A lot of them don't have the staff to do this. I mean, I know that our banker, and I bank with a little tiny credit union in Chesapeake, Virginia. It's tiny. And our loan officer was working 20 hours a day to get all these in.
Yeah,
they're the heroes.
That's right, John. And I have to tell you, that story has repeated itself over and over and over in folks that I'm talking to. It was that little community bank or credit union or something down the street that they had. These loan officers, my understanding is many of them were working through the weekend, working literally 20 hours a week, 20 hours a day trying to process these. In many cases, right, I mean, there was a little bit, like I said, the hiccup in terms of some lack of clarification on some of the guidance from Treasury. Frankly, they started processing things on a leap of faith that it was going to work itself out. Unlike, Wells Fargo and Chase and all these other guys, they said, we're going to wait till everything is smoothed out here to see if we're going to even consider taking applications. I mean, that really, I have to tell you, I think it's going to hurt them in the end. Mark my words on that one. I think it is going to hurt them in the end. But really, the community banks came through. But right now, John, I really want to make sure we talk about the need going forward because the money is out, right? And the request was made by McConnell. The Senate, Schumer, and the rest of the Senate Dems shot it down. He's tried to bring it up again a couple of times. They keep shooting it down. Now it looks like they're going to bring it up Monday, maybe. And then, of course, Pelosi is gloating in front of her $20,000 Sub-Zero refrigerating her ice cream, saying she's really glad that the Dems are doing this, right? And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that not only are we asking for the $250 billion now, John, I want another $100 billion. I think we should be asking another $100 billion. So make this program a $700 billion program. And I'm telling you right now, it's all going to be needed. Every single one of those dollars are going to be needed to help give this lifeline to Main Street America. Because we got to remember, this is not a bailout. It's not even a stimulus for these folks. This is a lifeline for something that the government actually created because we had to shut it down because of the health crisis. Right, mm-hmm. And so in many cases, these were thriving businesses that were surviving, that were doing quite well, and we've got to do whatever we can because we have to remember a couple things. There are 30 million small business owners out there in this country, employing 60 million hardworking Americans. Right, 2/3 of new job growth is in their hands, and over 50% of our country's entire payroll is in the hands of small business owners. I mean, we have to make sure that Main Street America comes back thriving. We asked people to go to our website, jobcreatorsnetwork.com. Later this morning, we should have the petition up and running. We just we're doing it late last night, trying to get that going. But we have to get people, and I'm telling people, don't call the SBA at this point. Don't call your bank, right? Call Chuck Schumer, call Nancy Pelosi, call your Senate Democrats, in any state, right? It doesn't matter where. And demand that they bring this to a vote and that these dollars be provided to the small business owners, the hardworking Americans across this country.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Truck the Truth. We're with Alfredo Ortiz. He's the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network. Go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. If you're a small business owner and you're not a member, you're crazy. You have to be a member of the Job Creators Network. And I tell you what, Alfredo, great message. Forget calling your bank or your credit union. They don't have the funds. There's nothing they can do. Their hands are tied. So what you have to do is you have to call Schumer and Pelosi. Let me just ask you something straight out. Are you in favor of the president and McConnell compromising with Pelosi and the Democrats and adding in the other $250 billion for what they want, money for communities, money for cities, money for states, money for their pet things? Do you just say, okay, have the money? What do you do?
Look, John, I mean, some of the stuff they're asking for, we know that our medical community out there, our nurses, doctors, first responders, all of them, they are also our heroes, right, through this entire crisis. So I definitely support that idea. How it's going about in terms of how they're doing it right now and they're holding up these incremental funds for the Paycheck Protection Program is what I completely disagree with. Because, first of all, if you look at what they're both asking for, we're asking for $250 billion on the Republican side, right? The Democrats agree with the $250 billion because that's also part of what they're asking for. And then they want other stuff for hospitals and nurses and stuff like that. But here's the point. There is already money in the program for those other elements, and some of that money hasn't even been dispersed yet. So none of those other programs have run out of money. The only program of the entire $2.3 trillion CARES Act bill that has run out of money at this point, in my understanding, is literally our Paycheck Protection Program. the $350 billion is completely out of money. So I say let's focus, since we both agree, both sides, at least on the 250. Can we at least just get that moving so that we can get money into the hands of the Main Street America so that they can keep their doors open so we don't have these massive unemployment numbers that we're seeing, 22 million? I mean, frankly, I actually had estimated 24 million, an additional 2 million. I think that additional 2 million that didn't happen because it was trending that way is because of the Paycheck Protection Program. And so we can do stuff right now if Congress just stops playing and Democrats stop playing these typical political shenanigans and agree on this. And like I said, I don't want 250 billion anymore. Let's shoot for 100 more in top of the 250 so we can have a $700 billion program. I think that's what we need to be doing.
All right, so we're with Alfredo Ortiz. He's the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network. He's been right on the forefront of helping small businesses. He's got the most powerful organization in America. Go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. If you're a small business owner, you absolutely have to be a member, no question. Alfredo, so let's get just very quickly, I know you're almost out of time, let's get to the politics of this. The president basically turning the economy over to the governors. Here's my concern. The blue state governors are going to slow walk the economy back in order to ensure in swing states Biden wins. Give me your reaction to that.
Well, I don't even want to think about that, John, because I think that's disgusting, right? This is an all-of-America challenge. It's something that hit every single American. I don't care whether you're sick or not sick, but it has hit us all, right? Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or independent. And so I'd like to think that partisanship at this point is not even an issue. I would agree that there is definitely partisanship here, and the opportunity to hurt the president, I think, is too great for some, and they're taking advantage of that. But they're doing it at the expense of America, of lives. I mean, not of lives and livelihood. And I think there's going to be a massive revolt against some of these governors who are being so restrictive and so authoritarian that they're going to be forced to do something different. And, you know, I think what we need to do is make sure we've got the right plans in place. And I think what the president laid out in terms of 3 different phases made a lot of sense. I also urge industry, though, because here's the one thing, John. We can't have government lead everything, right? In this particular case, I think it's incumbent on every single industry out there. And I ask industry captains of their industries to get together and say, okay, I'm in the restaurant, for example, right? How are restaurants going to put together a protocol? What is the right protocol that my employees and my customers, my consumers, feel comfortable coming into my restaurants, right? Each and every single one of those industries are going to have to do this and come up with that. And maybe we can have like a third-party, non-government commission, kind of almost like a good housekeeping seal of approval kind of thing, or they look at those plans and they sign off of it. And maybe that group has epidemiologists, it has business people, whatever, but it's something that you can get quick approval, but it does have to be, I think, industry-led. So I think it's kind of an overlap of the governors understanding what's best for their state, but then the industries themselves, industry by industry, understanding what the best protocol is for their industry to make sure that we have a safe environment for both employees and the consumers. Because at the end, John, remember, 70% of our economy is consumer-driven. If the consumer doesn't feel safe to leave their homes, right, because they're afraid that the right protocols aren't in place and they're to go out, there will be no more economy left, right, because the consumer's gone, the demand is gone. So the industry has to make sure they also put those right protocols, and then we have to help the American public understand those protocols and why it's actually safe to leave their homes again.
I think you're spot on, Alfredo, and I want to thank you for all the great work you've done. Alfredo Ortiz, I know you have to take off. Thank you for your time. John Fredericks Radio Network. Go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. Thanks for all your hard work.
Absolutely, John. Thank you so much. And hashtag Main Street Strong.